ABC Women would like to thank BIPOC Executive Search for sponsoring today's episode.
The BIPOC Executive Search app is here for you. Get information about job opportunities we're recruiting for. Keep up to date and in the know about career news tailored to Indigenous, Black, and other racialized audiences. Gain helpful tips and learnings to help you on your career trajectory, celebrate job appointments, and more. The BIPOC Executive Search app, here to elevate the candidate experience for Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. Free to download and available on iPhone and Android smartphones.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 woman growing strong. 100 woman where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny, woman.
100 ABC Women would like to take this opportunity to welcome our viewers and listening audience, families, friends, and our sponsors to our inspirational conversations, fireside chats with 100 ABC honorees. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold initiative created by the co-authors, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, a former MP, Donna Jones-Simmons, a corporate diversity executive, and Dr. Denise O'Neill-Green, Vice President, Equity and Community Inclusion at Ryerson University. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as a website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. We are pleased to bring you a series of fireside chats which include conversations around education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, legal, technology, entrepreneurship, diversity and equity, media, engineering, politics, sports, and so much more. These, we know, are topics that matter to us and to you. These educational and inspirational conversations will be made available to all current and future generations via our 100 ABC YouTube channel. This is a great way to learn from our elders, brilliant-minded and accomplished Black Canadian women. Please join me as I welcome a moderator for this episode, Developing Parenting Skills, Sarah Onyanga. She is a radio and TV host. Without further ado, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be moderating yet another wonderful fireside chat. This one really deals with a very, very important topic, and we have an expert who is going to give us insights and some tools and some inspiration. So Mabinti Dennis has been studying and practicing mindfulness meditation through the Shambhala meditation tradition for over 25 years. After many years of practicing meditation, she trained as a meditation instructor. Mabinti is the founder of Tulsi Mindfulness Pathway for Children and Parents. For over 30 years, she has advocated for inclusion, access, and diversity in the children's services sector. Focused on supporting and uplifting women, she uses her extensive community building experiences in arts and culture to develop positive relationships between children and parents. And I'm not going to go into any more detail about her biography. I'll just let her tell us more about the work that she's been doing. Welcome, Mabinti.
Hello, Sarah. Nice
Yes,
to.
so please tell us about your work that you do with parents and their children.
Presently, I work in the children's service sector. My job entails assessment. I don't do assessment, but working with children who have been assessed for different disability, and a lot of school placement, program running for parents and children, coordinating programs, and supporting parents. In my other life, because I have two lives, I am the founder of Tulsi Mindfulness Pathway. I am the director, so I coordinate programs for children, mindfulness programs for children and parents. We just finished our spring session in last 2 weeks ago with a group of very enthusiastic young people. Most of the children in the programs are children of color or Black children. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my extension of some of the work that I do with parents and children.
So why did you decide to go into this field specifically?
I think at the end of school, when I finished high school, I wanted to get into working with preschoolers. So I started my schooling by doing my early childhood education program. Then I went on to York and did another degree there, honors degree there. And when I came out of school, it was a natural calling. It was a natural flow. I got into program development, but in the childcare field. So I was organized working with immigrant parents at places like Costi, new immigrants when they were coming into the country. And then I started to do developing daycare centers at several other organizations that I work with. And then I just kept on that stream and continued to be supervising programs and working directly with children. And I personally found it very fulfilling because I love children. I also love community development work, and it was just a natural flow for me. When I developed Tulsi Pathway, it was also a natural flow for me because I felt that Black children, children of color, needed to learn mindfulness in a very culturally appropriate way. And so I developed program for them in a cultural, with a cultural lens. So
Mm-hmm. Can you tell our audience what mindfulness is? What is that?
It's a lot of things, but I would say paying attention with intention in the present moment and being present is our motto, so to speak. But it is not, when you say mindfulness, people will think of someone sitting down in a yoga posture, doing yoga. But in my mindfulness program, it's including culture. And so we use the Kwanzaa principle a lot, and we use cultural appropriated word and culturally appropriated programming. So children are doing mindfulness craft, singing is involved, some mindfulness technique, meditation, but it's not a meditation that sort of people will think takes you off into a trance or anything like that. But learning how to deal with their emotion, learning how to calm themselves, learning how to be present, learning how to not getting upset, and learning just to take a step back and when to make your move, rather than getting upset and become over emotional. So they're learning to control their emotion, but they're learning it in a culturally mindfulness way.
Now, what you just mentioned is very important, I think, in terms of managing emotions, because I'm sure for children, especially in this day and age, with all of the violence they're likely to be exposed to on TV, and then the violence inside the school system once they start going there, how does this mindfulness training complement or support their learning at school?
I think that I don't want to say for that 100% that it cures. It's a cure, because I don't feel that it is. I think it's a tool that they can access. So it helps them with positive communication, one thing, and to help their willingness to learn. Okay. It helps them to create positive environment for themselves. It helps them to calm down, to use different tools to help them to regulate themselves. Because regulation is a big issue. Children get bored, children get upset, they have different traumas or different issues that they're coming in. They're in a school, there's racism, especially what we've seen gone on in the last year and a half. So how do we, as culturally identified children, learn the tools that helps us to calm ourselves and to deal with these issues in a positive way rather than in a negative way? Because the positive way to deal with it, using tools such as mindfulness, will help with their wellness, will help with their well-being. Will help.
How do you work? Sorry, how do you work with parents?
I think the same thing, the same way I work with children in one respect, is how I work with parents. And I think is like helping them with their coping methods. How do they cope during this period? What is their capacity to cope? What is their, especially in this modern world of technology, computer, online working, and online teaching, and so forth. We help them to deal with their own wellness, right? They're taking care of their own self in order that they may be able to take care of their children. So I teach wellness to parents. I teach wellness. I teach mindfulness to parents. I help them to facilitate, to help with their capacity, because during this time, we become more tired, we become more overwhelmed with all the needs of our children in this particular time with pandemics. And there are many pandemics that are going on right now, of racism, of COVID-19, etc. So in this way is how I work with them, through wellness, to helping them to also learn how to manage and to cope within this period of time.
So you mentioned earlier that you've done a lot of work with immigrant and newcomer parents. You've been at this for several decades. What differences have you seen between the parents who were coming into Canada or into your community when you started, and the ones that have been coming recently? Have you seen any differences, or in terms of challenges and having to adapt your methods?
It's very challenging for new parents, quote unquote. When I say new parents coming into the country right now, because they're coming into the country at a very difficult time, and at a time when there's a lot of things are ripened, when there is the issue of racism, the issue of well, we have COVID going on, and that's another issue. Then the learning of how to navigate your child in a system, in a school system, when they themselves don't even know the system, and then they have to teach their children on a computer when you're not familiar with the system, and sometimes not totally familiar with the school programs, So these are difficult times for those types of parents, and those parents need a lot of support. And so and it's very difficult, but parenting groups are one of the ways that I would help those parents. So having parents in group so they could share what is going on with them and how to support each other during this process. Our parents that have been here for a long time, it's also very difficult because some of the same issues are arising. And I say in this modern day of parenting, some of these same issues, because how we parent in the past, we have to learn different skills to parent now because we have a competition. And also with immigrant parents, there's a competition because computers parenting our children sometimes. They spend many hours in front of it, Zoom learning, games, communicating with friends. So there's a competition going on, and with both sides, whether you're an old parent and you've been in the country for a long time or a new parent, there is that old competition of how do I begin to navigate this whole system? How do I navigate it so that I still have some control and also being able to being flexible so children can learn in the format that they're getting used to learning now.
Yeah. So speaking of technology and competing with technology in parenting, what specific techniques or methods do you have for regulating that for parents?
I would say that some of the techniques are being consistent with in terms of how you manage your home life around the computer. With your children, being consistent about time. So school time is this time, your play time is this time, or other interactions that you're involved with on the computer, so such as game time, and then time to socialize with your friends, but also be mindful that we also need to manage our time with our children. So when are we having that you and me time, your time, that communication, that those kinds of things are really important right now, because we can leave it up to the computer and it will take over. But I think it's very important that we right now stay in touch, model what we want to see them do, how we would like to see them be that role model that we want them to be, and stay with that, be that cultural icon, because while our kids are on computer, they're losing part of that culture, and we don't realize that because we feel that, well, they're doing, communicating with their friends, and that's the only way they can communicate with their friends. Well, they need games, and also it can become a little babysitter. So while we're doing that, and while we're not monitoring, while we're not being consistent, the computer is raising our children, and we're losing the culture, and that's our own individual culture that we raise our children in. We're losing all of that. So those things are really important right now in terms of how we do our parenting.
Yeah, because we Black cultures, whether they're in the Caribbean, Latin America, on the continent, we have a storytelling tradition to pass down,
Mhm.
cultures, ways of just living, like, the
Mhm.
way of life,
Yeah.
etc.
Mhm.
One thing I'm curious about, and this really has been difficult for some of the newcomer parents I've known, especially the ones who come from very traditional
Mhm.
societies.
Mhm.
Discipline, discipline in a country where, it's all about the children's rights, and you can have children's aid show up and take your child out of your home at the drop of a hat. So
Mhm.
tell us about discipline. How do you manage that?
Very hard to manage when you're used to a particular way of managing your children in your own culture. And also when you're managing your children back home, wherever home may be, to all of us, is that we have support. We have our kids are brought up amongst tight family knits, most of us, anyways. Our children are brought up in that. So that tightness around the family, also, you're not being an individual doing just the parenting, because it expand on the extended family, grandparents, auntie, uncles, sisters, and then it also extend to the community. And here it's so different that when you are in Canada, it's you and me, raising those two children and or three children or four children, so it's very difficult. And so that whole extended family as it is no longer your support. I think that inclusion of in engaging your children in the past, which is part of the culture, what happens back home or what happens in our country, and also in the present day today, where we're at, um, how we navigate that, and be a little bit flexible. So you're open to learn from the child, and the child is open to learn from you. Learning to, we have to have that bond with them that keeps us attached to them. So that attachment is really good. Keeping that bond, keeping that attachment, keeping or trying, because sometimes we can't, but trying to keep that cultural component involved and attached, I think it's really important. But at the same time, not to be too relaxed, not to be too loose. You're incorporating them so they become a part of the parenting, because in this society they're seeing that with their friends. They're hearing it from school. Well, my mommy did this. Well, my daddy did this, and my mommy did this, and my auntie did this. So I think that be open to learn, and be open to be a little bit flexible, and incorporate both the past or your traditional parenting and your modern parenting that you're learning. I use that word very loosely when I say modern parenting, but what you're learning today, I think it's really important to do both.
Mm-hmm. So the importance of recreating the village, the whole "it takes a village
Mm-hmm.
to raise a child"
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Mm-hmm.
But so, what are your thoughts on these statistics with parents losing their kids to children's aid from our community specifically, and the Indigenous community?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a cultural gap in terms of a system understanding how we raise our children. and what we would like them to learn and how we manage our children at home. So there's a big cultural gap right there. And so when you say how we're losing our kids to our community, part of it is they're not understanding our culture. They're not understanding how we relate to our children. And so the interference or the intervention becomes very turbulent, and it's very difficult for parents, and especially newcomer parents who have come into this country, because then when our children are taken away, then we lose the culture, we lose our children. And also part of that too is that whole extended family that I spoke about before is not there to support the parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, both in, I would say, in the Aboriginal community and in the Black community, there's not that extended family. And so when these things happen, sometimes there's nobody to step up and say, you know, we will help, we're part of that family and we will help out. But it is a lack of cultural understanding. I think some of it is a lack of cultural understanding between the powers to be and us and our community. And it's incumbent on us as a community to create those extended family as much as possible when we come to this country, as much as possible. They do not have to be our blood relatives, but they could be extended relative from friends, from community that we meet, that we can have those children be involved with, that will create the whole extended family. And that will help us to support. But my take on CAS is that, or child apprehension, not too comfortable saying too much because I work in the community, in that particular community. But yeah, I think I would say that we need to create extended family and create those kinds of barrier that will help us to regain our children, if they're ever apprehended. So we have those extended family to support us. That will be another topic.
Yes. Yeah. No, I was just raising that because I mean it's been raging for a while, and they had the One Voice, One Vision. They had the consultations, etc. And then the findings from all that were just, I actually cried over that because I didn't realize how many of our children are in the system.
Yeah.
So how do you equip young people to be good parents? How do you equip them? Because like you were saying, like for myself, I come from a traditional society back home on the continent where, you have rites of passage, and they sit you down and you actually are told, this and this and this. Here you have that. So for parents to be, how would you equip them to successfully parent?
I think there is a gap in our community in terms of not having enough parenting groups. Parenting groups that actually impart parenting skills. And I mean Black parenting group. There are many parenting groups in the community if you check, but specifically for our community where Black parents are actually sitting down, learning from each other, from the grandmothers, from the aunties who have already done this, from their own peers, those tradition needs to be passed on. Those oral stories that you spoke about a minute ago, those need to be passed down. I don't think we have enough of that. I think if we have enough of those those training, those parenting groups, meeting. I remember it would be a lot helpful to those parents. I remember years and years ago, I started a group. I think I was really young, and it was at the Immigrant Women's Center, and it was called Ebony Sisters. Can't remember the name. So the whole idea of the group was there were a lot of teenage girls that were being pregnant around that time. It was way back in the 80s. And we had those groups for parents. They get together, they would talk, they would share. And it was helpful for them. I see some of those parents now, like they're big people raising their kids and doing well. So I think that those kinds of groups need to come back. We need to have that tradition. We need to teach those traditions. We need to harvest from our culture and from each other in order to develop really strong parenting skills. Not to say that people don't have strong parenting skills, but those that needs a little boost, or having some difficulties, that's when I think those parenting skills those parenting groups are beneficial to teach those parenting skills to people.
Mm-hmm. So three key messages that you have to inspire parents right now who may be going through a challenging time with their parenting. What would those be?
Mm-hmm. I would say I have a lot more than three, but
okay.
I was thinking of,
in the short time we have left.
Yes,
yeah.
willingness to learn from your children, mm-hmm. Including them in discussion. Create your own environment. So your own environment means in your home. What kind of environment do you want your child to learn in? Create that for them. Own your communication. So your communication, especially your communication skills. How do you communicate with your children? Are you having parenting meetings? Are you having, are you communicating verbally, or are you using a computer to do that? Like, how are you doing that? Make quality time for your children. So both you and your children, and also make quality time to communicate with other parents. I think that's really important, because that's a learning tool right there, mm-hmm. And look for support wherever you possibly can. Look for support. None of us are perfect. We can learn from each other, and I think looking for some support through counseling, through groups, through your spiritual church, or wherever you find that support. I'm not going to discriminate. Wherever you find that support, look for that support and follow up with it. I think those things are important, because we are parents, and our capacity for coping, sometimes we can get stressed, and that's normal, So look for where we can get our support.
Mm-hmm.
So I have more than three.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, because a lot of parents, there's also the pride in admitting that you need that help, mm-hmm. and feeling like a failure because you don't seem to be on top of whatever it is that's going on with your child.
Well, yeah, that's true. And, I say this very briefly, I had a call from a cousin of mine in New York who had a friend in Canada who I didn't know this woman, who needed some support. And it was interesting because sometimes, we are professional. We've done a lot for our children, and we support them as much as possible. And suddenly something go wrong, and then we feel very defeated, and we are afraid to ask for help. And I said to her, listen, I don't know you. You don't know me. You call me for help. Let's just get to it. Let's talk about, like, what are your needs? What are the support that you need? And immediately was able to make connection with other areas that she needs to be connected in. But it was very difficult for her because of her position, because of who she is. It was very difficult for her asking for support. But I feel that at this period of time that we're living in, that we need to shed some of that and just really try to reach out, because nobody is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And no children is perfect, no parents is perfect. And the more support we have, I think it's rather important.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. Reach out for support. It's out there. There's no shame in that game.
No.
And, successful parenting involves the extended family and the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a village to raise the child, which is very much in all of our Black cultures. And thank goodness for professionals like yourself who can, help our Black parents really create a more, harmonious space in which to parent our future, because that's who these children are.
That's right.
Parenting our future. Thank you very much, Mabinti.
Yes, thank you too, Sarah.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 woman growing strong. 100 woman where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached